We hear time and again from tutors who love language that they are no good in math. They want a tutor, but they won't tutor in numeracy. Those who love words often don't love numbers the same way, and we get that. I get that, which is why I'm really grateful that the resources we have to help learners with math are so well constructed. You don't have to be a math whiz. You can just be you, helping your learners improve their day-to-day interaction with numbers. As you work with a learner, you'll discover how many times a day we all have to deal with numbers. You're doing better than you think, and you can support your learner more easily than you think. In this module, we're going to look at numeracy as an essential skill. We'll define numeracy, look at some common misconceptions. We'll look at the components of numeracy and what active and authentic learning means. We'll look at problem solving and communication, the numeracy process, some strategies to develop numeracy skills, some activities such as estimation, use of calculators, tables, graphs, and charts, and finally how we can create a balanced approach and opportunities for success. The Employment and Social Development Canada, the ESDC, Essential Skills Framework defines 9 essential skills: reading, writing, document use, numeracy, computer use, thinking, oral communication, working with others, and continuous learning. Within this framework, numeracy is defined as the worker's use of numbers and their capability to think in quantitative terms. Strong numeracy skills are essential in many workplaces and in everyday life. Although it looks like numeracy is just one skill out of 9, it is also a function within all of the other essential skills. The Essential Skills Framework focuses on contextualized skills development. It is suggested that the main ways that numeracy is used within this context are numerical estimating, money math, scheduling or budgeting math, and then measurement and data analysis. Some people think that numeracy means basic math, but it actually means so much more than that. Many practitioners see numeracy as part of that contextualized practice, which includes basic math, but there's other important topics to consider. The Ontario Literacy and Basic Skills Program suggests that these other important topics include number and operation sense, so that's the estimation and mental math skills, judicious use of calculators to ease computations. You don't have to do it all yourself. Statistical literacy, the ability to critically interpret statistics in advertisements and articles. Skills needed to handle functional tasks involving numbers. That may mean using schedules and forms and being able to review financial statements. And then the skills needed to plan and optimize resources. So that might be budgeting and scheduling and managing supplies. So numeracy focuses on how to use information in a variety of ways in everyday life. As our activities change, so does our need for numeracy. Numeracy is not something that you either have or don't have, nor can you say that once you've mastered it, you know everything there is to know about it. Rather, each of us is at a different point on the continuum, and learning numeracy is a lifelong process. There are a number of different definitions of numeracy, just as there are a number of definitions for literacy. In fact, the term numeracy was coined to fit the term literacy, in case you wondered about the similarity. But the definition we really like comes from the Program for the International Assessment of Adult Competencies. You may have heard us use this term before, PIAC. They've defined numeracy as the ability to access, use, interpret, and communicate mathematical information and ideas in order to engage in and manage the mathematical demands of a range of situations in adult life. So as we know, past negative experiences can influence a learner's attitude towards math. It's therefore important that as tutors, we explore with our learner their previous experience and let them share their fears and anxieties. You can share your own fears of and anxieties with math if you want. So let's take a quick look at some of the myths and misconceptions that a learner and even a tutor may have about math. The first, an aptitude for math is something you are born with. What do you think? True or false? This is indeed a myth. We all have the ability to learn, to reason with abstract ideas. The next two, to be good at math, you need to be good at calculating, or to being a whiz at figures is a mark of success in math. No, math is a science and does a science of ideas and not just an exercise in calculations. Math requires logic, not creativity. Well, I know for myself, balancing my bank account at the end of the month can take a lot of creativity. To create the abstract form of numbers requires actually a lot of creativity. So again, this is a myth. Math is a creative process. The important thinking in math is to get the right answer. We might think so, but it's actually not. It's important to understand the concept, not just the right answer itself. And finally, men are naturally better at math than women. No, they're not. We all have the same capability to learn as one another. So what are some of the components of numeracy? One useful way of thinking about the components of numeracy is looking at the context, content, and the cognitive and affective processes. So let's take a look at this framework for context, the use and purpose for which an adult takes on a task with mathematical demands. Why would they do that? Well, it could be for a family or personal reason, as a parent, household manager, consumer, financial or healthcare decision maker. They might need it in the workplace as a worker needs to be able to perform tasks on the job and be prepared to adapt to new employment demands. It could be for further learning, and mathematics is necessary for their further education or training. Or it could be something they need for being a good citizen in the community, being able to interpret social situations with mathematical aspects, such as the environment, crime and politics, understanding those. So what about the content? Well, that's the mathematical knowledge that is necessary for the task that the learner may be confronted with. So some of those content, that knowledge includes number and operation sense, a sense of how numbers and operations work and how they relate to world situations that they represent. Patterns, function, and algebra, an ability to analyze relationships and change among quantities, generalize and present them in different ways, and develop solution-based methods on the properties of numbers, operations, and equations. Could be measurement and shape. So that's the knowledge of the attributes of shapes, how to estimate and determine the measurement of these attributes directly or indirectly, how to reason spatially. And then data, statistics, and probability, the ability to describe populations, deal with uncertainty, assess claims, and make decisions thoughtfully. So cognitive and affective. These are the processes that enable an individual to solve problems and thereby link the two things we just discussed, content and context. So these can include conceptual understanding, an integrated and functional grasp of mathematical ideas. To have adaptive reasoning, that's the ability to think logically about the relationships among the concepts and situations. Strategic competence, the ability to formulate mathematical problems, represent them and solve them. Procedural fluency, the ability to perform calculations efficiently and accurately by using paper and pencil procedures, maybe mental math or estimation techniques, or by using technological aids, a calculator or computer. And then productive disposition. That's understanding the beliefs, attitudes, and emotions that contribute to a person's ability to and willingness to engage, use, and persevere in mathematical thinking, learning, or in activities with numeracy aspects. Many adults, not just literacy learners, are anxious about math. Math anxiety stems in a large part from the emphasis historically placed on the operational or computational side of mathematics. This emphasis led to the belief that mathematical ability was something only certain people had. What was missing from this approach was demonstrating to learners that math has real-life applications, that we use math every day. This linking of the operational side of math to its functional side is referred to as whole math, or holistic math. This approach and its components are very important. So the first thing that must be said about teaching and learning numeracy is that, like any learn, it should be active and authentic. Research into adult learning has demonstrated that learning is most effective when it is useful to the learner and tied to meaningful real-life situations, such as grocery shopping, deciding which gas station has the best price, completing a work-related form, and so on. In addition, the learner needs to be actively engaged in their learning, rather than passively memorizing formulae and multiplication tables. This approach helps adult learners to make abstract concepts concrete. Applying knowledge and skills in their own lives in response to their own needs is intrinsically motivating. It also encourages critical thinking, and that's the ability to approach problems using a variety of strategies and to know where mathematics fits into the bigger picture. The second thing that must be said about teaching and learning numeracy is that it's most effective when blending into the larger overall program of developing literacy skills and knowledge. Numeracy taught in isolation from other areas, such as reading, writing, and spelling, will not be as effective. Thus, a numeracy learning session should include components in which the learner reads, writes, and spells as part of that session. So, for example, you may have a learner read the newspaper to find examples of percentages. Then they'll write out a list of the areas in which the percentages are used in the paper, such as the sports section or a sales flyer. Finally, that may highlight any words that they have difficulty spelling. And then they can discuss the areas in their life where they use percentages, such as when they're shopping or trying to figure out a recipe or employment income and benefits. The emphasis in math teaching and learning in the past has been to concentrate on number operations and computation. While this is indeed crucial, there are other areas now considered to be equally important. Two skills in particular are emphasized for developing well-rounded skills and knowledge that learners can apply in concrete ways every day: problem solving and communicating. Problem solving refers to the ability of learners to generate, organize, evaluate, and apply mathematics both on paper and in real-life situations. The learner is able to acquire and evaluate information, communicate with others, and perform practical tasks. In order to problem solve efficiently, we need to help learners understand the basic steps: understanding the problem, developing the plan to solve the problem, implementing the plan, evaluating the results, reflecting on the plan and considering alternatives, and then finally communicating the solution. Communicating mathematically refers to the ability of learners to talk about, discuss, brainstorm, and explain the numeracy that they're using. You may remember your own class's quiet time in school. Your teacher did most of the talking and you worked out the problems on your own. They were up at the blackboard, you were at your desk. You had very little opportunity for discussing the math, either with the teacher or with others in your class. Well, that communication is now recognized as an important process in learning math concepts. Learners work together or with their tutor and are encouraged to talk about what they're doing, why they're doing it, and what they're learning. This trend reinforces the need to focus on communicating mathematically with adult learners. The importance of being able to communicate mathematically can be seen in everyday situations. For example, anyone trying to point out an error on a dinner bill or on their utility bill, for instance, would need to communicate mathematically. So would someone mapping out a landscaping diagram or a floor plan, or helping their children do their math homework. Perhaps they're trying to negotiate a sale of some sort or preparing a budget at work. Therefore, not only do we need to be able to solve math problems, but we need to be able to communicate that information to others. It can benefit adult learners to see numeracy problems in their everyday situations and understand how to take that information to create meaningful learning opportunities. One way that tutors can help with this is by following a process like the one here. Analyze a problem. So to do so, you're going to identify when your learner needs to use numeracy. Pick one of these situations and have him or her describe it further. Record that description, read through the description, and then develop a word problem based on this description. Figure out the problem. So to do this, you're going to identify the operational skills needed to complete the problem. So maybe that's addition, subtraction, fractions, etc. Then you're going to complete the math operations and then expand on the word problem by practicing the operation as needed. And finally, keep a record of progress. Record and track the numeracy skills that have been used. An example of a real-world situation that would require numeracy skills might be in replacing a refrigerator. So if a learner needed to replace the refrigerator, they would need to first off have a conceptual understanding of measurement, including fractions or percents, if they're looking at discounts and interest rates, and then the volume, so they compare features of different refrigerators, size to size. They would need to be able to reason about the particular situation, identify the demands of the task, determine the fit, how to pay the least for the most value, and how to minimize their interest payments, and then determining which strategies will be useful. So maybe that's spatial reasoning, measuring dimensions, comparing different discounts and rebates, charting different financial options with different interest rates. Next, they're going to formulate mathematical problems given the situation and figure out how to solve them. And then they're going to perform those necessary calculations and measurements and decide when exact answers are needed and when estimates will be enough. If numbers should be rounded up, is that okay? And finally, they need to be willing to undertake the task. They need to believe that math is a problem-solving tool, not just a school subject, and believe that they can do it. And they can know that if they get stuck, they can rethink it, do it again, and still succeed. Many examples can be taken from a learner's home, work, social, or community life, and it depends on the context of their learning goals. There are a few key strategies that can be adopted to ensure the greatest chance of learner success. First, we're going to focus on more than calculation skills. It's just as important to help learners develop and understand an understanding of the problem, the meaning, the what and the why of the procedures involved, and the relationship between the procedures as it is to develop the actual computation skills. By adopting a balanced approach to teaching and learning numeracy, learners will develop reasoning skills that can be utilized in future situations and in different contexts. Learning is further reinforced by providing opportunities to practice in real-world situations. We're going to focus on more than language when working on word problems. Traditional math instruction has often focused on the language of the word problems, looking for cues that will indicate the type of operation required. A balanced approach includes an exploration of the mathematical relationships within the problem and focuses on numeracy, understanding, and problem-solving skills. Again, the provision of real-world opportunities to practice will reinforce learning through the connection to relevance. I think I'm going to feel like a broken record by the end of this module saying that time and time again. It's important, so important to have those real-world opportunities. So next, we're going to challenge learners. We've discussed the importance of providing a safe, supportive environment in which a learner feels that they're able to share their thoughts and feelings and try out new things, including new numeracy skills, without judgment. However, just as we do with literacy, we have to push our learners beyond what they are initially think they're capable of doing. We can't shield them from challenges or obstacles. Learners need to be challenged to explore and apply their new learning and skills to think through problems presented and build confidence through success. This will in turn build critical thinking and transferable skills. And finally, maintaining a balanced approach. Teaching learning numeracy topics in an integrated way and not addressing topics in a sequential or isolated manner. This will build more rounded skills that can be applied in different situations and contexts. So one of the most important skills that learners can master is that of estimation. Estimation is a skill that will serve them in all areas of their lives throughout their lives. One definition of estimation is finding a number that is close enough to the right answer for the purpose. In mathematics, we often stress the need to get the exact answer, but in everyday life, we may not always need to be exact. For instance, when shopping, a few cents here or there may not make much of a difference to you. But if it's a few dollars, that very well could. So estimation has a number of benefits. It can help save money, save time, avoid costly mistakes, build confidence and judgment for their decision making, and then they can focus on the reason, the what or why behind the problem. There is no one right way to estimate, as different numbers and situations need different methods. Learners should be encouraged to find their own ways through practice. And tutors can encourage learners to think about how they will go about making an estimate in a particular situation. On this slide, there are 5 key estimation strategies that learners may find useful, depending on the context of the situation. It's important that learners have a range of strategies in their toolkit that they can use in different situations. And again, we have some great resources for numeracy that will help you find situations to demonstrate all of these. Rounding whole numbers, estimating a sum, front-end estimation, so that's rounding the numbers in the leftmost place or the very last number on the left. Compatible numbers, numbers that are easy to add and subtract, multiply, or divide in your head. They are visually easier to compute mentally than other numbers for a wide variety of reasons. Cluster estimation, when the numbers you are adding or multiplying cluster near or close in value to another single number. The use of calculators. There's a long-standing debate about whether adult learners should be encouraged to use calculators when developing their numeracy skills. Some say that using a calculator enables learners to concentrate on understanding the problem and the numeracy concepts rather than on trying to spend their time on the calculation procedures. Advocates of calculators suggest that using a calculator helps develop number sense and build learner confidence. On the other side of the debate, some suggest that calculators can distract learners from learning the basic facts, prevent them from discovering and understanding underlying mathematical concepts, encourage them to randomly try different operations without understanding what they're doing, and distracts them from developing logical reasoning skills. However, calculators are widely used in society today and can be very useful tools when used appropriately. So it's commonly accepted that within adult literacy and numeracy field, that a balanced approach to the use of calculators should feature in the learner's numeracy development. That means, yes, you can use them. There is definitely a time and a place for calculators in your tutoring sessions. A balanced numeracy learning plan includes a mastery of basic facts and the ability to do mental calculations before any form of dependence on calculators is developed. As numeracy development is incremental, a weak foundation will impact a learner's growth in the longer term. So calculator use should be limited at the beginning while those skills are still being developed and then increase over time. Tutors can help learners understand that the calculator is a tool, as are mental computing and a pen and paper. Choosing the right tool is an effective part of the problem-solving process. Estimation is important, and it's easy to make mistakes when punching numbers into a calculator, so a learner needs to be able to check that the answer is reasonable using estimation skills. Learners should know when to use which operation and how to check which one produces the right answer, rather than trying out all possible operations on a calculator. Tables, charts, and graphs are increasingly used in everyday life, and especially in the workplace. So it will benefit learners to be introduced to these as soon as feasible. Tables. They're used to present numbers or quantities arranged in rows and columns. Bar graphs, used to show numbers that are independent of each other. For instance, the number of people who use a Dell computer versus an Apple computer or some other make a computer. Pie charts. These are used to show how a whole is divided into different parts. Line graphs. These can be used to show how numbers have changed over time. Cartesian graphs, how numbers on both axes work, which therefore allow you to show how changes in one thing affect the other. Tables, charts, and graphs are convenient ways of presenting numbers and the relationship between them, and are becoming more and more popular in daily life and communication. So a balanced approach. The Ottawa Carleton District School Board asserts that effective math program balances skills, concepts, strategies, and thinking. Although a school-based resource, the principles are just as relevant when we're working with adults. Their framework includes instructional approaches, include a variety of instructional approaches in rich learning contexts, and focus on the development of conceptual and procedural understanding, skill development, and problem solving. A balanced program includes guided or directed instruction, as well as opportunities for learner inquiry, in which learners generate their own solutions. A variety of groupings for collaborative learning with peers, as well as time for independent learning, can be considered essential. Teaching through problem solving. When learners engage in problematic situations, they become curious, motivated to explore and generalize mathematical ideas. Problems are carefully selected and differentiated to be accessible, yet challenging for all learners. Learners learn to problem solve when they problem solve to learn. I like that. It's kind of a neat way to think of it. Purposeful practice. A balanced math program provides opportunities for learners to practice and consolidate skills and procedures. Purposeful practice strengthens the connection between skills, concepts, strategies, and thinking. It improves speed and accuracy and helps learners remember concepts, facts, and procedures. Once conceptual understanding has been established, purposeful practice helps learners develop computational and procedural fluency. The important thing is that the practice is purposeful and responsive to each individual learner's needs. Basic facts and operational skills. Operational skills and basic facts are important because they support efficiency and the ability of learners to judge the reasonableness of a solution in mathematics. Operational skill is more than fast recall on math drills. It involves understanding why a fact or a procedure makes sense and how it connects to other concepts and skills. While learners develop both fluency and understanding, skills become tools to help them problem solve. And then thoughtful use of resources. Having a variety of resources and tools that are used to support the learner in their learning. Resources and tools are selected carefully and are responsive to a learner's needs. Textbooks, manipulatives, technology, media, and professional materials, like the resources that we have to offer you, are all valuable resources. Using a resource thoughtfully is different than just following the resource lesson by lesson. The important thing is that any resource or tool is used thoughtfully. Given that many learners have negative attitudes towards math, an important aspect of their learning program should be the provision of regular opportunities to experience success. If the learning plan is broken down into smaller, more manageable goals, there are more opportunities to evaluate progress and recognize successes. We've said this before during, when we're looking at literacy, skill building, reading, writing. There are ways that you as a tutor can manage your learners' likelihood for success. To do this, we're going to look at the appropriate level of resources. It's important that teaching and learning resources are used at an individual's correct learning level, and that they do not become overwhelmed with too many concepts or procedures at once. If learning material is too difficult, the learner will become frustrated and disheartened. Steady progress through an incremental approach that incorporates ample opportunity for practice will be more successful. Measurement and evidence of progress. Although initial formative and summative assessment play a key role in measuring and evidencing progress, it's equally important to build evidence of progress into the learning program. This sounds way too complicated. Pretty much what we mean is that positive reinforcement, activity that demonstrates the acquisition of skills, resources that summarize learning and acknowledge the attainment of that learning goal are really important in the development of a learner's measurement of progress. Incorporating elements into the learning plan can serve as powerful motivators and be the difference between a learner persisting with the program or not. Repetition and reinforcement. This is not only important for building lasting and transferable skills, but also provides the opportunity for a learner to recognize the extent of their learning to date. We've covered a lot in this module. So I want to thank you for your attention throughout this presentation. You will note that with the exception of the short quiz that we provided, there's no other homework in this model. So let's recap what we did. We looked at numeracy as an essential skill and some common definitions. We looked at the common misconceptions and then the actual components. Then we talked about active and authentic learning and what we mean by problem solving and communicating mathematically. We looked at the numeracy process and some strategies to develop numeracy skills and some activities like estimation. And then finally, we looked at creating a balanced approach and developing opportunities for success. If at any point you need a little extra help, don't hesitate to reach out to your literacy council, your tutor coordinator, or to email us here at our office at either volunteer@llnb.ca or info@llnb.ca. Thank you so much for your attention and for learning about numeracy.